At family gatherings, my parents always said, "You're always the embarrassment." So when I bought my dream apartment, I threw a huge party and invited everyone except them. For a moment, I felt that familiar surge of anger that had built up over 32 years of their constant dismissal. My first instinct was to call my mother and unleash everything I'd been holding back. But then something shifted in my mind. My business training kicked in. I realized this wasn't just about one party. This was my opportunity to demonstrate exactly what they'd been dismissing all these years. The comments on my social media posts were already rolling in. College friends, work colleagues, even neighbors from my old building were congratulating me and asking about the gorgeous apartment photos I'd shared. But the silence from my family was deafening, and I knew they were seeing every single post through our mutual connections. Here's what you need to understand about my financial situation, because the numbers are what made this victory possible. I'm a senior software engineer at TechFlow Dynamics, making $145,000 annually after my promotion 6 months ago. While my family spent years telling everyone I was just playing with computers, I'd been building a legitimate career in enterprise software architecture. My stock options alone are worth $380,000, and I've been maxing out my 401k for 8 years. The apartment I'd just moved into was a 2-bedroom corner unit on the 35th floor in downtown's most exclusive building. Monthly rent was $4,200, which was more than my parents' mortgage payment, but I could afford it comfortably after years of living below my means. The building featured a doorman, rooftop terrace, and a fitness center that looked like something from a luxury magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, and I'd furnished it with quality pieces that cost more than most people's cars. But here's the strategic part most people missed. I'd been documenting my family's treatment for months, ever since last Christmas when they publicly humiliated me at my own career milestone. I kept detailed records of every dismissive comment, every time they introduced my siblings as the successful lawyer and the brilliant doctor, while describing me as still figuring things out. I had screenshots of family group chats where my mother discussed how disappointing I was, and voice recordings from family dinners where my father explained to relatives how I needed to get my act together. I spent weeks documenting every interaction with them, creating detailed logs with timestamps of their undermining comments and manipulation attempts. I kept spreadsheets tracking all financial impacts of their behavior, the therapy costs, the missed networking opportunities because I avoided family events, the stress-related medical bills. Every piece of evidence was photographed and stored in cloud backup systems. My attorney, Michael Rodriguez at Highland Legal, explained the importance of comprehensive documentation for potential harassment cases. While I wasn't planning to sue, he advised me to maintain detailed records of any escalating behavior. My financial advisor, Jennifer Walsh, showed me how to structure my assets to maintain complete independence from any family financial entanglements. The private investigator I consulted, David Kim from Metro Investigations, confirmed that documenting patterns of emotional manipulation was crucial for establishing clear boundaries. The party planning process was methodical. I reached out to everyone who had ever shown genuine support for my career. College friends who remembered my coding projects, work colleagues who respected my technical expertise, even acquaintances from professional networking events. I hired Sterling Catering, a company specializing in upscale corporate events, and arranged for a full open bar with premium liquors. The total cost was $8,500, but I calculated it as an investment in building my professional and personal network. Digital invitations went out 3 weeks in advance, complete with professional photos of the apartment and city views. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My college roommate Jake Morrison wrote that he'd always known I'd end up successful, despite my family's attitude. Sarah Chen from my development team mentioned how excited she was to see the place she'd heard so much about. Even my former neighbor Patricia Williams, who'd watched me work late nights on freelance projects, commented on how proud she was of my achievements. The strategic element was ensuring my family could see these posts while being completely excluded from the actual event. I kept them on my social media, but adjusted my privacy settings carefully. They could view my content, but weren't tagged or invited to engage. Every sunset photo from my balcony, every catered food sample I was testing, every detail about the upcoming celebration was visible to them, while they remained firmly outside the circle. my mother was the first to break. She sent a text 3 days before the party asking about the nice apartment she'd seen in my posts. She mentioned how lovely it looked and asked when I was planning to have everyone over to see it. I screenshot the message and saved it to my documentation file, then deleted it without responding. The assumption that she'd be automatically included was exactly the entitlement I'd been dealing with my entire life. My father called the next morning, leaving a voicemail that started confused and quickly shifted to demanding. He said he'd heard about my move and wanted to know why they hadn't been told about the party being mentioned online. He claimed the family was confused about not being invited and that my mother was hurt by the oversight. I saved the voicemail as audio evidence but didn't return the call. My brother David tried a different approach, messaging me on LinkedIn with professional courtesy. He congratulated me on the apartment and asked if there had been some miscommunication with the invitations. He mentioned how everyone was looking forward to seeing the place and celebrating my success. I left him unread and took screenshots for my records. The night of the party, my apartment was transformed into something from a corporate magazine spread. Sterling Catering had arranged elegant food stations throughout the living room and kitchen, featuring items like seared scallops, prosciutto-wrapped asparagus, and artisanal cheese selections. The bar area was stocked with Macallan whiskey, Veuve Clicquot champagne, and craft cocktails mixed by professional bartenders. I'd hired photographer Amanda Torres to capture the evening's success, and smooth jazz played through my Sonos sound system. Guests started arriving at 7 p.m., and within an hour my space buzzed with genuine conversation and laughter. People were authentically impressed with what I'd achieved. Jason Webb from my development team brought his wife, who immediately started asking about my interior design choices and career trajectory. Maria Gonzalez from my former building spent 20 minutes discussing software architecture with colleagues who actually understood my work's complexity. Around 9 p.m., I made a toast from my balcony with the city lights sparkling behind me. I thanked everyone for being part of my success and mentioned how grateful I was for authentic support, especially during challenging periods. The response was immediate. Glasses raised, cheers, and someone shouted that I deserved every success in the world. Amanda captured everything, and I knew these photos would document one of the most satisfying nights of my life. The party continued until nearly 2 a.m. As guests said goodbye, many hugged me and expressed genuine pride in knowing me. Amanda handed me a USB drive with over 300 photos from the evening, and I knew each image represented proof of the life I'd built without my family's approval or support. The next morning, I selected the best photos and created a comprehensive social media album. Images of my crowded apartment filled with smiling professionals, elegant food presentations, groups laughing on my balcony with the skyline behind them, and shots of the beautifully furnished space. My caption thanked everyone who attended and expressed gratitude for having such amazing colleagues and friends in my life. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Comments poured in from attendees, others wishing they could have been there, and professional contacts from other cities impressed by the photos. People tagged their networks, shared the images, and commented on how incredible everything looked. The post reached over 2,000 people within 6 hours. But the comments that satisfied me most came from mutual acquaintances who understood my family situation. Rebecca Martinez, my college study group leader, wrote about remembering how my parents always dismissed my technical abilities and how amazing it was to see me surrounded by people who appreciated my expertise. Tom Richardson, my former manager, mentioned how clear it was that I'd built my chosen professional family and how confident I appeared in every photograph. 3 days after posting the party photos, my phone started ringing constantly. My mother called 8 times in one afternoon, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. She said the entire family had seen the posts and couldn't understand why they hadn't been included. She mentioned how hurt everyone felt and how this was causing problems with extended family members who were asking questions. My sister Jennifer sent a lengthy text explaining how embarrassed she was when her medical colleagues started asking why she hadn't been at her brother's impressive party. She said people were wondering about family drama they didn't know about, and she was having to make excuses for why none of them had attended. The desperation in her message was exactly what I'd been hoping to see. The message that really demonstrated my success came from my father. He left a voicemail that started angry, but gradually shifted to something approaching panic. He said he didn't understand what he'd done wrong, and that the family was falling apart because of this situation. He mentioned how my aunts and uncles were asking questions and how embarrassing it was to admit they hadn't even known about my new apartment. The man who'd spent decades calling me an embarrassment was now embarrassed himself. I listened to every message but responded to none. Instead, I screenshot the most supportive comments from my party posts and saved them as validation files. Reading positive feedback from professionals who respected my work reminded me why I'd made this decision. A week later, my cousin Lisa reached out through my work email, which she'd gotten from my LinkedIn profile. She was one of the few family members who'd always treated me respectfully, and I actually felt some regret about not including her. She said she understood there was family tension, but asked if we could meet for coffee to discuss what had happened. I agreed, mainly because I was curious about how the family was handling the situation internally. We met at a downtown cafe, and she immediately started asking about the apartment and party. She said the photos looked incredible and that she was genuinely happy for my success. Then she provided the information I'd been hoping to hear. She described the previous weekend's family gathering as complete chaos. My parents had spent the entire time trying to figure out how to handle the situation, while my siblings fielded questions from their professional circles about why they hadn't been at the party everyone was discussing. Lisa said my mother had tried explaining it as miscommunication with invitations, but too many people had seen my deliberate social media posts to believe that story. Several relatives had commented on how successful and happy I appeared in the photos, and how impressive my achievements were. The contrast with years of family narratives about my inadequacy was impossible to ignore. The most satisfying detail was hearing about my siblings' reactions. David had been forced to admit to his law firm partners that he hadn't been invited to his own brother's celebration, leading to questions about our relationship that he couldn't answer without looking bad. Jennifer faced similar problems with her hospital colleagues, who kept bringing up the photos and asking about family dynamics they didn't understand. Lisa asked if I planned to reconcile, and I told her honestly that I wasn't sure. I explained how decades of being treated like the family disappointment had finally reached a breaking point, and this party had been my way of surrounding myself with people who actually valued my contributions. Lisa understood and said she'd stay in touch regardless of what happened with the rest of the family. A month after the party, the situation escalated beyond what I'd expected. My mother showed up at my apartment building unannounced. She must have gotten my address from Lisa or found it through public records. The doorman called to ask if I wanted to see her, and I told him I wasn't available. According to building security logs, she waited in the lobby for over 3 hours before finally leaving. The desperation was becoming clear. The next day, I received a certified letter from my parents. It was a formal invitation to a family dinner where they wanted to discuss recent events and work toward healing family relationships. The letter was written in my father's legal terminology style and felt more like a business negotiation than any kind of apology. I threw it away without responding, but kept copies for my documentation files. 2 weeks later, my social media notifications exploded again. My mother had commented on my original party photos, writing a lengthy message about how proud she was of my success and how the whole family wanted to celebrate with me. She claimed there had been confusion about invitations, but hoped we could move past it. The performance was transparent and desperate. The response from my network was swift and brutal. People who had witnessed years of my family's dismissive treatment started commenting with their own observations. Jake Morrison wrote about remembering my parents visiting college once and spending the entire time criticizing my major and career prospects. Sarah Chen mentioned conversations where I'd described family gatherings where I was consistently made to feel inadequate. But the comment that perfectly summarized everything came from my high school friend, Marcus Williams. He wrote that he remembered my parents telling people I was their disappointment child at my own graduation party, and how incredible it was to see me finally surrounded by people who recognized my actual worth. The public validation was everything I'd hoped for. My mother deleted her comment within hours, but screenshots had already been taken. Several friends sent them to me privately with supportive messages. The damage to her attempted narrative control was complete and documented. The final escalation came when David tried showing up at my workplace. He must have looked up TechFlow Dynamics online and simply walked into the lobby. Security called me down, where he was waiting with what he clearly thought would be a persuasive speech about family obligations and forgiveness. He told me I was being childish and that my behavior was hurting everyone. He claimed I was making the whole family look bad and needed to fix the situation before it got worse. When I asked what exactly he thought I needed to fix, he said I should apologize for excluding them and host another party where they could save face with their professional circles. I looked at him standing there in his expensive suit, still trying to make this about how my actions affected him, and realized absolutely nothing had changed. He still didn't understand that decades of dismissive treatment had natural consequences. I told him I was done with the conversation and walked back to my office. He called after me, claiming I was making a huge mistake and that family was supposed to be forever. I kept walking and had security escort him from the building. 6 months have passed since the party, and my life has never been better. I've been promoted again at TechFlow Dynamics, largely due to the confidence I gained from eliminating toxic influences. My new salary is $165,000, and I'm leading a team of 12 developers on enterprise software projects. The energy I used to waste trying to win family approval has been redirected into career advancement and relationships that actually matter. I've hosted 4 more gatherings in my apartment. Smaller, intimate dinners with close professional contacts and genuine friends. Each event reminds me how different it feels to be surrounded by people who authentically enjoy my company and celebrate my successes without reservation or competition. My family's reconciliation attempts have gradually decreased. My mother still sends occasional holiday texts to my work email, but they've lost their desperate edge. My siblings have apparently moved on to other family drama, and my father has stopped calling altogether. The professional embarrassment they experienced seems to have taught them that dismissing family members can have social consequences. The most rewarding development has been watching my chosen network grow stronger. Colleagues who defended me in those social media comments have become closer friends, and I've formed new professional relationships with people who appreciate competence over family obligation. My reputation in the software development community has grown significantly, partly due to the confidence boost from finally standing up for myself. Last month, Lisa texted me with an update from the latest family gathering. Apparently, my absence has become normalized, and people have stopped asking where I am. She said my parents now tell relatives I'm focusing on my career when asked about me, which feels like the closest thing to respect I'll ever receive from them. Lisa continues to maintain contact with me independently, and we meet for coffee every few months to catch up on our professional lives. The apartment continues bringing me satisfaction every single day, waking up to that city view, having space that's entirely my own, and knowing I earned every square foot through my own technical expertise and professional growth. The financial independence I've built means I never have to tolerate dismissive treatment from anyone, family included. Sometimes I wonder if I'll regret cutting them out completely. But then I remember standing on that balcony surrounded by people who were genuinely excited about my success. I remember the comments from colleagues who had watched my family diminish me for years, and how validating it was to finally have that behavior called out publicly. The revenge wasn't just excluding them from one party. The revenge was building a life so successful and fulfilling that their absence became irrelevant. It was surrounding myself with professionals who recognized my technical abilities when my own family couldn't. It was finally understanding that family isn't about shared DNA. It's about people who choose to support and celebrate your achievements. I don't regret a single aspect of that decision. My only regret is not making it sooner. The apartment is hosting another celebration next weekend for a colleague's promotion to senior architect. As I plan the menu and send invitations to people who matter, I'm reminded again that sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding without the people who tried to hold you back. The family that proclaimed I was always the embarrassment learned that exclusion works both ways, and judging by the professional network I've built, the financial independence I've achieved, and the career trajectory I'm on, it's pretty clear who came out ahead in this situation.